Please welcome to the stage Kat Gordon, founder of the 3% Movement, Shari Neal Williams, Senior Social Media Specialist, Northwestern Medicine, and Marianna Ruiz, EVP, Executive Creative Director, Edelman.
Hey everyone, did you have a good playtime? Yes, awesome. I love that we get people out of their chairs. So, leading this movement, a big part is keeping your ear to the ground for things that people respond to. And I wrote a piece on LinkedIn about alcohol and how it was kind of the organizing principle for all advertising gatherings, and how in our Elephant on Madison Avenue research about sexual harassment, that often those things happened at these kind of booze-fueled gatherings. And so it made me think that's something maybe to discuss on stage at 3%, especially in the pandemic, where we see that women, especially mothers who have been left without a care net and are under unbelievable pressure, are being marketed to more and are drinking more, are self-reporting that their drinking is way up in the pandemic. So I'm so excited because Shari and Marianna both kind of responded to something I put online and said they'd be willing to talk about their story. And all three of us want to be clear that this is not a sanctimonious, trying to get people to do or not do something. It's really just a conversation about, are we living as mindfully and drinking as mindfully as we're trying to do other things in our lives? So I'm going to let my co-panelists introduce themselves to you. Marianna, do you want to start?
Sure. My name is Marianna Ruiz. I'm an executive creative director over at Edelman now for almost a year. I am a mother to a 4-year-old daughter. I am currently pursuing my MBA at Northwestern Kellogg. I've been in the industry almost 10 plus years now, starting in New York, then coming to Chicago. Happy to be here. Been a lifelong drinker, so I don't know if that...
And I'm Shari Williams. I'm a senior social media specialist at Northwestern Medicine. Coming from Chicago, I'm mom to a 7-year-old, and I have 2 adult bonus children. And I think, what was the other piece?
Whatever you want to share.
Oh, yeah, that's basically it. Oh, and I have a side business. I make it's my creative side hustle. I do t-shirts and things called Bon Bon V.
Oh, I love that. I didn't know that about you. Awesome. Well, let's just start to ground everyone in the conversation. And we'll start with you, Shari. Was there a moment where you thought this could be a problem, or this is something I want to rethink in your life? And tell us what that was.
Absolutely, there was a moment. I've never been I wouldn't say a heavy drinker. I went through my college binge drinking phase, but these days I'm kind of a lightweight, I'm like a social drinker, but the pandemic definitely put things into perspective for me. I think being at home with a child 24/7, especially during the lockdown portion, it's almost like the aftermath of drinking wasn't worth it anymore.
Yeah.
And also I have a few health things that made me really reconsider how much alcohol I was taking in. Even though it wasn't necessarily a large amount, I still felt the need to cut it.
Yeah, I hear you. And what about for you, Marianna?
So I recently, I was born and raised in Miami, and as a Miami kid, you grow up going out pretty early. So I've been drinking alcohol and doing other things for a long time. And so I've actually had these periods of my life where I wanted to make sure that I wasn't dependent on it. My father was an alcoholic. So I always kind of put these tests to myself. Mm-hmm. When I was a senior in high school, I did it. When I turned 25 years old, well, actually, I was 24, but it was for my father's birthday. He had just passed, and he could never give himself sobriety, so I, for his birthday, gave him a year of my sobriety. And then most recently, I turned 39 years old, and I said I wanted to enter my 40s crystal clear. So I wanted to stop doing everything to make sure that I was, I have a kid, I'm going back to school, I'm in this role now that's very kind of demanding, and yeah, I still suffer from imposter syndrome. So it's just like a lot of pressure. And then I realized that the drinking and all of the other things, as fun as they were distracting, and they were taking up so much mental space. So I had to, again, just put myself to this test, and I decided just 1 year, I have to like do it for a year. I'm not good at a week or a month. Like, it has to be something that I just put off out of my mind entirely for a long period of time in order for me to feel like I'm gonna be able to achieve it.
So when was the beginning of your 1 year?
September 20th, on my birthday.
And Shari, what day did you stop?
It's been about 2 months for me.
Okay. And I just came off of Sober October. I did a month without alcohol. Yesterday, I did have some champagne with some other conference attendees back at the hotel. But for me, it was very much realizing I moved to Napa Valley. I'm living in the wine country. Everywhere you go, there's alcohol. I also have noticed alcohol just seems to be on offer in a lot of places where you normally wouldn't encounter it. And I was like, wow, I don't even feel like I'm deciding if I'm saying yes anymore. It's just a default yes. So it's been interesting to have a whole month of like default no. And the thing that I've really most noticed, and then I want to us to kind of enter that phase, like what changes have we seen? For me, it's a sense of freedom that I'm not thinking about it. And I realize how often I am thinking about it normally, like what time is it? Do I have wine in the house? The guilt of like, I probably shouldn't, and I just, all of that's gone, and there's so much, and it was really nice to do that in the month before this conference, because obviously there was a lot of details to be handled. I felt like my productivity, my sleep, everything felt more solid. And that feels super good. And now I'm a little nervous, like going back into it, like I still want to have that sense of mindful, purposeful choices instead of a default, I'm going to be drinking. So I'd love to hear from each of you about the changes you've noticed in the 2 months, and also for you 2 months. Have you noticed changes, Shari?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Definitely a clearer mind and don't have to deal with like a hangover the next day. But another interesting kind of side effect is like the lost weight from the calories you're not getting from the alcohol. Like I wasn't really expecting that.
That's nice.
Yeah. So much more productive. I complete projects. I complete work assignments. Not that I was like not doing that, but I am so much more like active. As soon as I finish work, I am handling something else instead of going to, chill. And so much more productive. Also, I'm actually, like, I have dreams. I dream very vividly.
Wow.
And I am so much more in touch with my mood swings, actually. I noticed, like, this is a women's conference, so, during my period, my mood swings are actually much more intense than I realized they were. So I was kind of, I realized that I was dulling myself a little bit. So now I'm just all me, having a deal.
Full proof. Yeah, awesome. I discovered this app that I think I told you both about, but I want the audience to know, called Cutback Coach. And again, it's not about like all or nothing. It's about you deciding how you want to intentionally be drinking or not, and you report through the app every single day. And one thing it does that I love is it tells you how much money you've saved and it's like hundreds of dollars. And so I'm now using that money to buy things that are truly self-care instead of, just this default choice. So it's motivating. Being a copywriter, I'm very motivated by words or things on Instagram that really speak to me. And there was one quote that I want to share that came from an Instagram account called Creative Sobriety. And it said, "I've come to understand that I crave mystery. I crave what can't be predicted or defined. There was no mystery left in alcohol. The mystery was dead. Everything had become a predictable and pathetic cycle. I reached for booze when I was bored, sad, happy, heartbroken, celebrating, lonely, or in love. How unoriginal is that? As a creative person, my biggest fear has always been becoming common, simple-minded, uninspired, and small. It took me way too long to realize my habits were taking me there. That friggin' stopped me in my tracks. I mean, you hear that alcohol increases your risk of certain cancers, and I was like, alcohol makes you fat. But something about this, that it could make you less creative, was so offensive to me that has been very motivating. Do you have, for each of you, has there been a story, a quote, something you've connected with that you think about almost like a worry bead when you're wondering if you can keep on this journey?
For me, it hasn't been so much like a quote or anything. I just think at the end of the day, I felt like the decision was made for me. My body was like, no mas. And I was like, okay, I have to respect that. So it was just kind of like, I listened to my body, and that was enough for me to kind of stick with it.
But even what you just shared, Chori, is you're connected to your body in a way that I think so often we forget that our body is speaking to us constantly. It is giving us cues and clues about things that are harmful to us emotionally, boundaries with people, all of that. Your body is talking to you through the stress and where you experience it. So I love that it sounds like you have a super clear channel.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What about for you, Marianna?
I thought about this, and the only thing I can speak to and remember is I'm sorry. I was really saying that often, and it was always back to drinking, and it was always from something I would say to a best friend. So it was me realizing that I wanted to stop saying that.
Just I want to understand, meaning there were moments where maybe with alcohol, you had harmed people's feelings or unwittingly said something.
For sure. Or I didn't, not even intentionally or maliciously. It's just you're loose and you're having fun and you just say shit.
Yeah.
Sorry. And I was just and it would, it would be some of my best friends.
Yeah.
And so it was, I just didn't want to be in that position anymore. I realized that most of the times in my life that were harder for me to process were fueled by it. I'm not blaming it, but it was a presence there. So it's just so much easier for me to, I don't know, I guess deal with myself, without it. So it was kind of just the quote for me was, I'm sorry. I was so sick of having to revisit that.
Yeah. Speaking of what we say to our friends and not, we were just having a little talk off stage about when people ask you, why aren't you drinking? Are you pregnant? And we were just all kind of that's so nuts. As women, can we all make an agreement that we won't scrutinize people's choices like that? It doesn't matter what their choice is. Why are we making them defend something? Again, goes back to my opening keynote. Who is centered and who is an afterthought? Alcohol and the drinking culture in the advertising world is absolutely the in group. It's the organizing principle for all of our gatherings. That is exactly why we're having a mocktail party this afternoon. The people who aren't drinking aren't stuck with seltzer and lime. We have really beautiful, thoughtful mocktails. So thank you for that, Marianna. I appreciate that. So I'm wondering, because we all work in marketing, have you noticed or read about the increase of targeting of women? And I know when we talked on the phone, it was kind of this duality of oh good, advertisers are finally taking us seriously as a segment. Because it used to be that everything was marketed to men when women do all the buying, including of alcohol. So it's kind of oh good, they recognize that we hold the purse strings. But then the flip side of that is really feeling targeted. The world has been very brutal on mothers and working women and single mothers and women that live alone, women with mental health challenges. And to think that that's a moment where the spend of an alcohol company is upped. We talked about, do we feel we have a responsibility from inside our jobs around that? Did you want to talk to that, Shari?
I mean, it's tough. Like, I like alcohol. Like, I didn't want to give it up. And I do think that, it is something women drink in addition to men. All types of people drink. So it's tough. Like, I think alcohol in moderation is totally fine. But you're right. Like, it does increase your risk of like breast cancer. If you have mental illness, it can, trigger that a bit and kind of, make your depression a little worse. So I'm still kind of trying to find where the line is.
Yeah.
I don't know if I feel this is the same as like marketing cigarettes, but maybe it is. Like, I think I have to put a lot more thought into it.
I think I have just, over the past few years, I've just become, I've scrutinized everything we work on. I think we have to be scrutinizing what we're doing, what we're selling, who we're selling it to, and making sure that there is, somebody in that room that is raising concerns. And that could be for alcohol, that could be for cigarettes, that could be for anything, any cars. I used to sell cars, and whatever it was, especially, sometimes being the lone Latina in the room, I default to scrutinizing it and making sure that whatever we're doing has the right intentions and or is said in the right way, feels authentic, and we're not demonizing anybody or we're not exploiting anybody. I think that just applies to anything that you're working on. And then you have to, balance your own moral compass and your values of what you want to be behind, what you want your name on. And if it's something that you don't believe in, then I tell my teams, if you do not want to support this, if you do not want to be a part of it, you don't have to tell me why. Just let me know that you don't want to be a part of it, and we'll figure it out. But I don't want to ever put somebody in a position that makes them uncomfortable, because that's a terrible inhibitor to creativity. But also, I think we all have to step up to be more responsible marketers for whatever we're working on.
Yeah. So we just have a couple minutes left. I guess I'd love to close with, how do we each want to show up for the people on our teams, for the people in our lives around this issue? How do we want them to regard us in terms of someone that's available for conversation about this? Because I think the reason why an article like the one I posted on LinkedIn or the comment I posted on Girls' Day generated so much traction is that there's a lot of shame attached to this issue. And if you're walking around feeling like you don't want to admit to yourself what might be a problem, or that you might want to take a different path, I think it's so powerful for us to just host this conversation for 20 minutes, but maybe just each close on like, what's your kind of personal mission statement around how you want to show up in the world as someone who is approachable around this topic?
Yeah, definitely my personal mission statement would be, whatever your choice is fine, and you don't need to explain it to anyone. I think having been on both sides of this as someone who did drink, and then you like look at the person who's not drinking, you're like, what's wrong with them? Are they not fun? Like, why are they being weird? But now being on the other side, it's like there are so many valid reasons why someone wouldn't want to drink. And it's not necessarily your business to prod about it if they're not comfortable talking about it.
Bingo. Yeah. What about you, Marianna?
Yeah, I totally second that. I think, I'm somebody who I share openly. I tell very personal stories kind of often. So not that I encourage anybody else to share personal stories, but that's just me and that's how I am. So I hope that sets a precedent for people to understand that, I put myself through a lot of these things. And I'm willing to share it so that if you feel like you want to share, I've been through it all. I've been through a lot, I'll say. So I'm always, a good sounding board for anybody. But also, to Shari's point, absolutely. There are so many reasons why people don't drink, and a lot of them are extremely personal and can be very, come from places of trauma or health. And so it's just being a little bit more mindful. If you're hosting an event, think of other ways to be more inclusive. You know, whether it's, you know, there's so many other things that your event can offer besides alcohol, not only in the content of your event, but, you know, we had a meeting the other day, and instead of it being a happy hour, we centered it around our favorite ingredient. And everybody kind of shared their favorite food ingredient, their spice, their seasoning, you know, their whatever it was. Mine was, you know, marinated red onions, but there was just so many other ways that we can socialize. So it's just about, you know, maybe being a little bit more mindful as to like planning your social events. And yeah, please stop asking people why they don't drink, or my personal one is, when are you gonna have kids?
Oh.
Stop.
Yes, totally. And for anyone that's listening, if you're curious about this, there's a great hashtag on Instagram that's Sober Curious. There's an amazing collection right now out of what they call Quitlit, This Naked Mind, Quit Like a Woman. There's a lot out right now. There's a lot of conversation about this. And there's a lot of safe people like the three of us that is always available to talk about it without judgment. So thanks for listening, and see you for the mocktail hour. And that's it.